As most of you Trekkies out there are probably already aware, Kate Mulgrew, captain of the Star Trek Voyager series, is under a lot of scrutiny right now for having narrated a film that hasn't even come out yet. Why so much controversy? Well, mostly it centers around, no pun intended, geocentricity. Now, I'm not going to get into my full opinion of geocentricity at the moment, maybe in a later video, but essentially it's the concept that the whole world revolves around us, or more precisely, that the universe was made for us. And while I can certainly understand where that would work better for some people, I think it's more comforting to think that things were made all for us, that we are the center of the universe. But what's really controversial about this film, and I don't yet know exactly how it's stated, but apparently they are saying in the film that the sun revolves around the earth, not the earth around the sun, and that all the planets revolve around the earth, and I'm assuming that the entire universe revolves around the earth. Yeah, not kidding. Well, I'm just here to tell you that they are not wrong. Before anybody freaks out, this isn't some crazy theory that goes against all science. It's actually something pretty obvious to anyone with a working knowledge of gravitational fields and relativity. See, we used to assume that Earth was the center of the universe, and why not? After all, you went out, you looked up, and you saw the sun going over the Earth. You saw the moon going around the Earth. You saw the stars. Everything was moving around us. Why not? Now, of course, eventually Galileo started noticing that some of these stars wandered. They were called wandering stars. And they moved depending on the season. They weren't in the same area of the sky. This was really strange to him. And he finally realized by calculating this that in reality they were planets and that we were all moving around the sun. And of course, it took us a while to figure out that he was actually right. But what we understand today with, well, actually not just relativity and gravity, but also with our expanding universe, is that that isn't necessarily true either. And I'll tell you why. That was a very easy way to look at our solar system back when we assumed everything was static. And it took us a while to prove that the whole universe was actually expanding. And because you have the entire universe expanding, everything is accelerating away from everything else. Now, some people have a misunderstanding of this. They think that we are actually accelerating away from one point. We're moving away from a single point where the Big Bang happened. And this is a little hairy to get into, but the Big Bang actually happened everywhere. I'm not even going to try to get into that, but watch this video and it'll give you a pretty good understanding of that concept. Because we now understand the way gravitational fields work and the fact that the entire universe is expanding and therefore everything is moving, we understand a little better that nothing is quite the way we used to look at it, even though we still calculate it in much the same way. Let me give you a visual. Let's assume out in the void, somewhere away from any stars, you have two huge suns that are exactly the same size and mass, revolving around each other through space. They both have the same gravitational field, they are both in each other's gravitational field, and they are revolving around each other at the same speed. Now imagine one of those suns started getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It could get down to the size of an atom. It wouldn't matter. We would start seeing the smaller sun as revolving around the larger sun. Now that's not really true because they're only revolving relative to each other, and they're revolving around each other at the same speed, regardless of their mass and size. Now, if you take that to our solar system, you quickly realize that in reality, the sun and the earth are revolving around each other. The moon, the sun, our all of our planets, all of those planets' moons, they are all revolving around each other because we're all in each other's relative field. If a comet were to fly in from outer space and glance off our atmosphere, it would actually affect our gravitational field a very, very, very small amount. Now, because of the size of the sun in relation to the size of the Earth, its gravitational field is tremendously more immense, but they are still both exerting force on each other, or more precisely, they are both exerting force by bending space to their own various, and I'm not going to try and get into all that, and I'm not going to try and get into rotational vectors and how you can't have a vector without a static point and the sun isn't a static point. All that really matters is that because objects can only move relative to other objects through space, and because of the way the universe is expanding, everything revolves around everything. So theoretically, if you wanted to, you could decide anything was the center of everything. You could kind of decide that everything revolved around your head, for instance. You could grab the Earth and just do all the calculations as if the sun and all the planets were revolving around it. This would be tremendously complicated and probably pointless to do that. For all that matters, you could grab the moon and decide everything was revolving around the moon and do all your calculations that way. It is so much simpler to simply assume the sun is static and do your calculations of all the planets that way. But if you think about it, it's not necessarily true. It's just the most useful way of looking at the universe. And the whole reason I bring all of this up is this is really an excellent way of looking at everything, including religions and philosophies and worldviews. Because of the way that we're set up, the way that we work, the simple fact that all of us only exist to ourselves, literally. We don't know anyone else exists except us. We assume that. We have a certain degree of faith in that. We prefer to think that, but we don't actually know. And regardless of all of that, it is much easier and, in my opinion, probably much better to assume everyone in the world exists. But since we don't know it, since we only have the information that is coming into our brain through our senses, that's the only thing we have. So in some sense, geocentricity does have a certain amount of validity, and I'm not making fun of it, but it is just one way of looking at the universe. And everything is just one way of looking at the universe. So if you take that concept of suns and planets and geocentricity and you take that out to worldviews, it might give a little bit of an idea of how omnism works, because in my opinion that's really a fantastic analogy of omnism. The ability to at least recognize that anything could be the center of the universe, not necessarily to try and do the calculations from that perspective. If any of that makes sense, I'm sure that the comments and my emails are going to be full of crazy and insane statements, but I'll do my best to answer it. And once again, I'm the Urban Omnist. I really enjoy you guys watching, and I appreciate it. And I'll look forward to it. And guys, please don't forget to support us as much as possible by clicking subscribe, liking us on Facebook and Twitter, and please, 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 please send me those questions right at this address. Thank you very much. Again, I'm the Urban Omnist.